So, hi, Service Aussie. Welcome, everyone. So, I've had some questions that came in since doing the last live stream, and I love questions. So, hit me up with your questions. Really, I have more than I'm possibly going to get to tonight. I have brought I've got 16, 18 questions. So there's going to be another live stream on this topic. So any questions that you ask, I will try to get to them tonight. If not, we'll put them on the next week's stream. But there's going to be a little bit of a priority here. So if you're in the chat and you want to ask a question, you're my priority. Okay. So thank you, busy lady. Thank you. She says, no worries. Nice to see you. All right. So, and if you're in the chat, if you have a service dog, and I know not everybody in here does, so don't feel bad about it. Just type yes or no. So yes, I have a service dog, or no, I don't. Okay. And quick update, really fast, before we get into the Q&A for the service dogs. I want to give you all an update. I am in, for those of you who don't know, my county was one of the ones hit by Hurricane Helene. She pretty much smacked East Tennessee. My county borders North Carolina, if that gives you an idea. So on the stream one night, I guess 2 nights, I asked for help getting what I'm going to call cleaning bundles. So it's a couple of, I hope I have it in the description box, comment box. If not, I'll go back and change that. But it's sponges, gloves, a bucket, cleaning supplies, and 2 of the vinegars. My hope was to get 30, and we have 30. Now, somebody heard about it on social media, but offline, and they went offline rather to try to get some funding to help us out. So we have the 30, the money for the 30, and I'm going not this week, but next week to go pick those up, and I will vlog it. I'm so excited, so excited. So yeah, that was a quick update on that, and I forgot the other update. Oh yeah, the van. For those of you who don't know, I like to do van life with my doggy, and I wrecked the van because everything is so delayed because of Hurricane Helene. It is going to be, get this, the repair shop is booked out about 12 weeks. So it's going to be June before they can look at my van. How crazy is that? But it's a really good shop. I've heard nothing negative about it, so I wanted this particular shop to work on it. Just kind of crazy. And the insurance company, they're going to provide a rental car for the time that my vehicle is actually being worked on. So, yeah, my wings are clipped. What can I say? My wings are clipped. But the good thing is I will hopefully be getting the van back in time to go pick up the other service dog, because Pipsie is going to be transitioning. So that's going to be, it's going to be good timing. We are keeping Pipsie. He's going to move into the therapy dog role. We'll talk about that on a different live stream when we get a little closer, okay? So yeah, let me turn this light down just a little bit. It's a little bit hot, I think. And we'll bump this down. Okay. Is that better with the lighting? If not, let me know. All right. So let me dive into the meat and potatoes of this live stream. And I will be clipping that very beginning out. It will take 24 hours for YouTube to process it before I can clip that out. But here we go. Diving into the Q&A. I was writing down the questions and literally have 3 pages of questions. I'm really excited that you guys are asking these, and it sounds like you all are excited. So we're going to dive in. Here we go. Question 1. What is the first thing you do to prepare your service dog for a trip? Well, the first thing I do is we go to the vet and I have the microchip scanned because sometimes the microchip can become corrupted and I don't want that to happen. So, to make sure, I go to the vet and they'll just scan it. Now, if he is due for his checkup, then I'll get the checkup done right before we leave just to make sure he's really good and healthy and ready to travel. I also do the grooming, and I usually do that all at the same time. Vet's office right here, groomer right here. So make sure that his nails are trimmed, and make sure that if he needs the space in between his paws trimmed, they can do that for me, and I don't have to worry about it. So I take care of the vet and the grooming and the microchip all in one day. Really makes life easier. I have less to worry about. Then I'll come home and I will dye his tail if it's warm outside, and I will dye the tail purple. And that makes it a little easier to spot him and a little quicker to identify him. If, heaven forbid, he should get away from me for any reason, because obviously that's like my worst nightmare. And Peter Parker is tossing in. I can't see what that is. It's a blue thing. I'm buffering a little at times. Oh no. No. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that or not. Let me see if I can bump it down a little bit on the video quality. Okay, it's on the standard input right now. Let me try bumping the resolution down just a little bit and see if that helps without making me too blurry. Y'all let me know, okay, if it doesn't. Whoa, that was me. That was me hitting the wrong button again. Okay. Thank you for keeping me posted on that, Peter Parker. Peter Parker is one of our mods, and there you go. He'll keep me informed. Thank you. So that is really the first kind of package that I do on preparing Pipsie for any kind of travel, whether it's a road trip or whatever I'm doing. Okay. Yeah. So the vet, definitely, that's a big one. And like I said, if he's due for a checkup, then I'll have the checkup done just to make sure he's good and healthy, because service dogs, they're at a higher standard and you really have to work with that and make sure that they are super clean, super healthy. All right. Question 2. How do you handle hotel or campground stays with your service dog? That's a really good question. It's really 2 questions. So I'm just going to answer both questions here. You asked about the hotel first, so I'm going to talk about that. So when we go to the hotel and I have the service dog, I make sure that Pipsie goes in with me in full gear and make sure that it is as obvious as possible that he is a service dog, because hotels are notorious to ask questions that where they're trying to fish and make sure they've got to sort people out. They are also notorious at not asking the correct questions. There are 2 questions that you can be asked, and that is this a service dog required because of a disability? And number 2, what work or task is he trained to do? So I have found many times when I've gone to a hotel with my service dog and I have said, hey, I have a service dog here. Oh, really? Is that a service dog or is that an ESA? And I have to explain to him that he's in this super expensive harness, for one thing, and this is some of the things that he does. And some hotels still want to be a problem with that. I was in one recently in Sevierville, Tennessee, actually Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, And I had to sign an agreement. First time I've ever been asked to sign an agreement. And it included things like I would not put a do not disturb tag on my door because I have a service dog. And if my service dog alerted, they would call 911. Well, service dog Pipsie alerts for blood sugar and service dog Pipsie alerts for asthma attacks. There's no need to call 911 just because he's going to alert to those things. And it was not right for him to ask me to sign the agreement saying I would not put a do not disturb tag on the door. If I'm in a hotel and I want to take a shower, I'm going to put that tag on the door because what is it? The hotel staff comes around, and I've had them knock as early as literally 9 a.m. to see if I was going to check out that day or if I needed housekeeping. I'm not fooling with that. I want to have just my time in the shower, and no, there is no way I'm not putting that out. So that's a couple of things that I've gotten into with a hotel. Another thing is that they don't really have a place where you can take the dog to relieve himself or herself. That's when it's really important for your dog to be able to be trained to take care of his business on any surface. And you may have to find some gravel or a corner of the parking lot and let him do his thing and then pick it up. So that's just some of the problems I've run into in hotels. I've also had a hotel that refused to allow me in the breakfast area for the continental breakfast. And I'm like, you can't do that. And they're like, yes, we can. No, you can't. Yes, we can. So we go back and forth. And the thing is, when I stay in a hotel, I'm usually always with my husband. So he'll go up and get my plate and he'll bring it to me at the table. So I'm not usually even up there with my service dog, except on the very rare occasion if I'm in a hotel by myself, which is usually when there's some kind of an emergency. So I actually had to pull out my service dog law, which I always make sure I have with me from the ADA. I print that out. And I have had to show that on several occasions. So I really recommend if you're going to be traveling, if you're on a road trip with your service dog, or if you're going to stay in a hotel, I really recommend having a copy of the service dog law printed out and with you. It makes a huge difference. That's what I've gotten into with hotels. Okay, and the second part of that is campground stays. I have had the best luck with campground stays, except sometimes the regular campground part is packed, it's overcrowded, and they don't want you to bring a service dog in. So you have to kind of, similar to a hotel, say, look, I can bring them in. This is legal. It's okay. Just, it's fine. And pull out that service dog law. Most of the time, what I've run into in campgrounds, is that they want to put us over in the pet section. And that's okay with me. I'm not super thrilled about it, but I'll work with it. My only thing about the pet section is it's the pet section. So not all of the dogs that you run into are socialized around other dogs, and that can lead to problems. I try, if I find out that when I've made the reservation, if I've typed in service dog or if I've called them ahead and said, hey, I have a service dog, if I find out that they've put us in the pet section and that's like the only thing that's available, which has happened several times, then I try to get them to put us closer to the non-pet section because I feel like we're a little less likely to have a problem if we can get as close to that section as possible. But by and large, campgrounds have been great because they're used to animals. Hey, we have got Service Dog Channel in. Hey. And she said, I had somebody try to deny me going through the buffet. He was a young guy. I did the same thing, show him the law. That, don't you think that, like, that's the best thing to do? You know, you can, if you need to, you can call the police, have them put it on record and stuff. But the service dog law really is it's the best thing to have. If I am traveling across the country, my husband just loves this because I become a tree killer. I will print out the state service dog laws for each state if I'm traveling like across the country, like if I'm going to Alaska again or something like that. That way, if they try to tell me that the ADA federal law is not in effect because they have state laws, which has happened to me a couple of times, and it's a real pain. But that way I can also whip out their state law, which everybody knows that federal law trumps state law, but once in a while you'll have that happen. So I really recommend doing that too. It's just it's just a way to protect yourself, to make life a little smoother. Should we have to do this? No, and you all know we shouldn't have to do this, but not everybody understands about service dogs. So how do you handle hotel or campground stays with your service dog? Just did that. Let's see. Which is easier, camping or a hotel? Camping. Hands down, as far as it coming to a service dog, I have always had an easier time at campgrounds. State, federal, local, private, commercialized like KOA and stuff. I have always had a better time at a campground. If anybody's had a different experience, or if you want to share your knowledge, then by all means toss it in. Also, the service dog channel, I'm talking to you. I need to get your email address. If you don't mind emailing that to me, because I wanted to send you one of the things that I do is I have a little card printed out that I will give to people, and most of the time, 99% of the time, that takes care of the problem. I'll whip it out at hotels, restaurants, campgrounds, wherever I need it. But I told you I would send it to you, and I can't find your email address. So let me type mine in. So there you go, right there. And here we go. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll send you that, but I need your email. Okay, so let's see. Which is easier, camping or hotel? Okay, what's in your dog's travel bag? Well, I brought it in with me. It's a big bag, so bear with me here. All right. So when it comes to service dog Pipsie, I don't necessarily travel light, I will warn you. And I do not have his first aid kit because unfortunately that's in the van where I had to get it towed. So I've got to go back and get it. So first things first, I take a small, full, unopened bag of dog food. Oh, also I'll take whatever we've got at home, but I like having a full unopened bag because it's extra just in case something happens, and then I have it. Okay, so there we go. Actually, I haven't looked in this in a while, so there's no telling what's in here. Okay, his raincoat. If we go out and it's raining and I need to walk him, I want him literally covered. So the raincoat. Now, I will tell you, He does not like the raincoat, but he's got to wear it. He does like this, however. And he likes this. So I like having a couple of different toys because I think that's important to him. That way he won't get bored as readily. And okay, something about hotels. This is my secret weapon. If your dog, listen to me on this, okay? If your dog sleeps in the bed with you, bring a sheet to put over the bed. Make it a colored sheet, because don't bring white, don't bring off-white, don't bring anything that's really, really pale, like a pale yellow or a pale blue. You know, anything that can be mixed in with the hotel sheets, don't do that. Because staff comes in, they're in a hurry, they pull the sheets off the bed, and yours is gone. So bring it in a contrasting color. Glove for grooming. I know I just had him groomed before I left, but things still come up. I like having a towel when we go to a restaurant, or if I'm at a meeting, I will have 1 or 2 towels I put on the floor. And that not just helps him to define his space, but it helps him be comfortable. So there's 2 good reasons for that. Of course, both water bowls. Both bowls, one for food, one for water. Sorry about that. A couple of extra Ziploc bags, just in case I need them. And I use them for things like wet raincoats. If he's wearing boots, I want something I can put the boots in. Any kind of thing like that. If we're out and he gets into a creek or a puddle or water, and I'm drying him off with a towel that gets wet, I want the plastic bag for that. Super important. Now, I like having a vest or a sweater for him because that helps in a lot of different ways. Sometimes you'll go in a restaurant and it'll be really cold, especially if you're getting toward fall or cool weather. And if you're cold, I just feel like my dog might be cold. So I like having that just in case. Not something I'm going to carry around in the summer unless I'm going to Alaska. So you have to have your extra TREATS. I know if I say that word, I'm going to have every every owner listening to this come running. So tree. And those are the kinds I like. I'll divide up 1 or 2 or 3 days of food just so it's easier to dump into the bowl. Even though I have the emergency bag of food, I want to save that for emergencies. So I always take a regular supply of his food, and then that's my backup. Bags. A couple more toys. And I carry extra leash wraps. One that says no talk, no touch, and the other one that says service dog. That way, if I am out, like what happened to me one time, and the Velcro suddenly goes bad on his other wrap, then I'll have these. I don't really like either one of these because they are a lot wider than his leash. And so they don't stay in place as easy. But it is better than nothing. So if I'm in a pinch, I can use these. And I've been a handler since 2009, so we've been in a couple of different predicaments. Okay, on this, Let me kind of just unravel it here. I'm sure everybody has seen this. This is a slip leash. If I carry it in here just in case there's a problem with the other leash, then I have a slip leash and I can use that in case of emergency. This is one that the vet gave me a long time ago. I actually had it since before him with my other service dog. And there are times when you got to have it, you got to have it. I know this sounds like overkill on some ways, but hey, things happen. If you've used your leash for a while, leashes can get wear and tear on them, just like everything else can. And when you're using it, there can be an issue. So you want to make sure you're covered. And that's why I have this. It just makes life like you're more secure, okay? Because things come up. And you want to make sure that everything is all hunky-dory because your service dog can't take care of you if you're not taking care of your service dog. So these are the things that I've got right in here. And of course, the towel. And I will say, Pipsie loves being groomed with these. These gloves are great. And you can get them on Amazon too. They're not expensive. All right, flop. Okay. So if you have any questions on what I put in there, you can go ahead and ask. Usually I have the first aid kit, but I just don't right now because of the situation with the van. Okay. Next up on the list. What do you do when people ask rude questions? We get this so much. What I like to do is I like to just be nice. It kind of depends on the question. One of the things about having a YouTube channel is you can refer people to the YouTube channel. So if you have a YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, anything like that. The cards that I have, they help. Usually that diffuses just about everything. But if they're asking a rude question like, hey, what's wrong with you? I don't turn around and spout off and say, hey, what's wrong with you? I try to be nice. And I'll point out like, hey, I can't walk well. I'm in a leg brace. Or, hey, I have blood sugar problems or seizure problems or asthma. I can rattle off this whole long list. And I think a lot of us can. So I try to turn the rudeness into an education moment. Now, if they're asking something rude about Pipsie, then I kind of get a little, I won't say rude, but that's when I start quoting ADA. It's like, look, he's a service dog required because of the disability. You can see I can't walk well, and that's why I need him. And it just, if you're nicer, it seems to calm them down, and they're nicer. That doesn't work all the time, but probably 99.9% of the time. Okay. Talked about what's in the dog's bag. Rude people. Got that. How do you deal with public access challenges when traveling? Oh boy. All right. So it depends on the situation. If I'm at a hotel and I am having a public access challenge, then I will ask for a manager. If the manager doesn't work, I'll ask for the general manager. If that doesn't work, then I'll go district or regional, but I'll just work myself up the food chain. I will give them the copy of the ADA and stuff, just like what we talked about. If it's a restaurant, then I always ask for a manager. 99.9% of the time, when I have had a public access problem at a restaurant, it's been somebody who just didn't know. They thought they were doing the right thing, but they weren't, and that's why the cards, the ADA law, the state law, all those things can come into play. The only time I have had a severe public access denial was at, of all places, the National Institutes of Health. That was a biggie. I've got video on it, and just that was a problem. So I'm going to refer you to watching that video because that was a big deal. I filed ADA. They sent it to the other places that it needed to go to, and they dealt with it. We'll just say that. So it just all depends on the situation. I did walk into a BLM or Forest Service property. I don't remember which it was. And the volunteer started yelling at me before I even got to the door. And she was like, "Get your pet out of here. We don't allow pets. They can't be in the building. They can't be on the trails. We don't want your pet here." I was like, "He's not a pet. We're not on the trails. We're at the visitor center. And he's required because of a disability because I'm in my leg brace. And ta-da, I need to have him because he balances and braces and so forth." Well, she continued yelling at me. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm just not doing this. I'm not playing this game. Let me go ahead. We'll call the police and we'll just get it documented." And she's like, "What? What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we'll just call the police and we'll get it documented." Because I'm handing her the papers and she's saying that I don't need those because their policy is you won't bring pets in. And she showed me on their little flyer and stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, I get where you just circled it, but read the paragraph right above where it says service dogs allowed per federal law." So she got on the phone, she called for a park ranger. The ranger comes in and she's like, "How can I help you?" And yes, we do allow service dogs. It's fine. And so there was just a little bit of education that happened there with the volunteer. And the volunteer, things where they were so much different the second time that I went in, even though the same volunteer was at the desk. We were through there about a year later. Totally different experience. So those education moments, they go a long way. Okay. Let's see. How do you deal with public access? Okay. Have you ever been denied access somewhere and how did you handle it? So I just kind of talked about that under public access challenges about working your way up the food chain. And when I had the problem at the NIH, they had to get the Department of Justice had to get involved, sorted out the problem. It took 2 years to work its way through the channels, but it was resolved. So you've got to be prepared for patience and to keep working your way up. It really does help. Let's see. What are your tips for taking a road trip with a service dog? Okay, I can do, if you all want me to, and email me or message me or drop a comment in the chat room, I can actually do a whole video on this. First things first, make sure your bag is packed, ready to go with everything that you need. You saw what I just put in Service Dog Pipsie's bag. I unloaded it for you. Make sure you have that. Make sure you go to the vet first, veterinarian first. That's huge. Make sure you go to a groomer first. So those tips, pack your bag well. In the car, okay? Take a USB fan with you in the car. If your dog rides in the back seat, definitely if your dog's in the hatch, keep that air circulating. because it gets a lot warmer or a lot colder in the back seat, depending on the season, than you realize. I mean, you're sitting up front, dog's in the back. So you want to make sure you keep that air circulating. Now, if I'm in the van, I've also got his water bowl out all the time to make it easier for him. He can help himself to the water. He can do whatever he wants to in the van. That's, I know, pretty controversial. Some people are like, well, you should always, put your dog in the seatbelt and stuff like that. But one of the things my dog does is he alerts. So I don't necessarily want him buckled in to the back seat all the time. But anyway, we'll get into that. So on your back seat, most of us have one of those dark dog covers all over the back seat. And they're great, but they absorb heat. And in the summer, that's really bad because your dog is jumping into a hot car, because cars are hotter than the air around them, and you're asking your dog to jump onto a very hot seat. So take a thick pad that's light colored, even if you have to make it, and cover the bottom of that seat with it. And so you have a protective barrier. So when your dog loads up, he's not jumping on that hot seat. You also want to make sure you cover the back seat with the same kind of cutter. So bottom of the seat, back of the seat, that way he's not jumping onto something hot. Now, if you have a cooling mat, then you can put in your back seat during the summer, then I recommend that you use the cooling mat. And that's for the health and safety of your dog. Because if it's 100 degrees outside, or even as low as like 70 degrees, it can still be mid-80s, but you've got that black pad absorbing the heat. So it can be a lot hotter, even on a 70-degree day, than what you want your dog jumping into. So make sure his paws and body are protected by having him jump on something light instead of jumping on something dark, say your dark seat. The other tips I have are have a ball and have his toys. But one thing that's really, really helped me is to have a lead. One of those long, if you're doing a horse, you might call it a lunge line, just a very long lead. I don't say very long. Okay, so I'm talking 25 to 50 feet, not one of these 150 footers. Because what I'll do is when I stop at a rest area, I will park next to where there is grass. That way I can take the lead, I can affix it to the van or the car, and he'll have some space, and I can throw the ball a little bit, or I can play with his toy a little bit. And so he has a little bit of freedom, but not so much that you have to worry about somebody getting him while he's running across a field or whatever. It just makes it a little bit safer. You have the best dog that has the best recall, okay? But that doesn't mean somebody else is not going to interfere. And the lead helps protect you from that. So whether you have to back into the parking space or pull into the parking space or pull into where like half of the van or half of your car is on the grass side, do that. It's also cooler in the grass. So if you're going to exercise your dog, then when you're at the rest area, walk in a position where you might be on the sidewalk, but he might be in the grass, because that can be really helpful. You just want to be really aware that if you're traveling, and especially if it's in the summer, you want to protect his paws. So you may want to go ahead and get booties, but if not, then try to at least keep him in the grass. Some areas I am from, Southwest Virginia. So we have lots of nice lush grass. When I go out to New Mexico, that changes, and there's a lot of burrs in the grass. Um, so you want to watch for that too, and that's where you may want booties. So those are kind of my tips. Also, keep a little sweater or something that you might need, because you want to make it as easy as possible for your dog to be comfortable. Part of that is also having water that he's familiar with drinking. We don't think about it, but there's a difference in the type of water that you have throughout the country. For example, if you're over next to the beach, then you may have a really soft water because of the type of water that they have, the type of environment. So that's one type. Well, here in the mountains, at least in Southwest Virginia, East Tennessee, and so forth, we have water that's got a little more limestone in it. So it's very, very different. And then let's say you're going to the desert Southwest and the water is still different there. So if you bring your own, you can add water to theirs a little at a time, and it helps the dog adjust that much better. If I'm in the van, then not only do I bring regular water from home, but I buy the jugs and have those refilled. So he'll always have some type of filtered water. If you don't have access to bringing your own, or if he's exhausted the supply and you can't get bottled water, then at least get one of those filters. They make water bottles that have the filter in it, so you can just use that and refill his water bottle out of that. So yeah, and of course, have the first aid kit. Things happen. If you go into a different environment, your dog may run into something that he's allergic to, that he's not running into at home. So you may wind up having to give him some Benadryl or a longer acting antihistamine. Talk to your vet, ask what you should use, because you may have some of that. Dogs can also get car sick, just like people. So you may want to have something like that too. That's where the first aid kit really comes in handy. So yeah, so those are my tips. Let's see. And like I said, I can do a whole video on that. So let me know in the comment section or email me. Okay, this one is a good one. What are your tips for using public transportation, buses specifically, with your service dog? First, anytime you have an assistance animal, you have to pay more attention. So some of the tips are: make sure that you're standing out of the road. Okay. I know that should be a no-brainer, but your dog's neck is farther than his body. So I cannot tell you the times that I have seen somebody with their dog on the curb, but their head is like another 1.5 feet out there, or in the case of a bigger dog, it may be a couple of feet out there. So make sure that your dog in total is away from the road. Okay. This is where your public access work really comes into play. If you have a nice covered bus area, try to get in that. I use the command wall, which tells Pipsie that he's going to be right up between me and the wall. That keeps him out of the way. It also keeps you sheltered. Be aware, however, that glass or those posts, if it's summer, late spring, early fall, they can be really, really hot. So don't put your dog right up next to those until you make sure and put your hand on it to check the temperature yourself. So keep them out of the way, keep them under the cover, keep them up next to the wall, and that helps, keep them all out of the way, and that keeps people from bothering him while you're at the bus stop. The other thing is where your public access work really comes into play is your service dog should be acclimated and ready to go on the bus. He should or she should be used to the noise of the bus, that shh that the bus makes right in front of you. The dog should be interested in that. The engines are louder, and he should be used to all of that. So when I go to get on the bus and I pay attention to what he's doing, you want to have a leash that's usually about 6 feet on his. I can fold it in half, and so I have a good 3 to 4 feet. Or if you have a traffic lead, I would not recommend using it for getting on the bus, but for the bus stop. So when you go, those steps can be kind of steep, but there's the bar there. So what I like to do is put myself on the bus first, have him wait, put myself on the bus, and then once I get to the top step, that's when I give him COME, so he'll come and he'll jump up. But some dogs, especially the smaller dogs, may have trouble with the steps. So if you have a medium-sized dog and you can't help the dog can't carry the dog up the steps yourself, then have some way that you can help your dog if he or she requires assistance. So if you are traveling with another person, you can ask the other person to kind of give your dog a boost if it's needed. If you are concerned that your medium-sized dog may need a boost, then there are straps for that. If you have a mobility harness, you can have the mobility harness help you out, just to help them get up the steps. Then on the bus, I open up my towel, put it over the seat, and if he puts his head on the seat, then, it's not going to be hot for him. That's how I handle the bus. That's how I handle shuttles. So if I'm at Walt Disney World or at a conference or at a hospital and you're using those shuttles, I do the exact same thing. Okay. And if you all have any comments or suggestions and you want to toss them in, go ahead, okay? All right. How do you keep your SD comfortable on long drives? We kind of talked about that a little bit, and that is keep the air flowing. Watch the temperature back there. Make sure it's not too hot, too cold. Put the cover on it. Everything we just talked about a minute ago. What's the longest road trip you've ever taken with your service dog? If you have followed my channel, then you know that I have been to Alaska a few different times on mission trips. So I forgot what the mileage is. So I'm going to plug it in right now and see. That would definitely, by far and away, be the longest trip. And this is, okay, from here, type in directions, go into Homer, because I've been there before, and which was gorgeous, by the way. This is not working. So let's see here. And this was a lot of challenges because you have to make sure that your dog is adjusting all the way there and all the way back. You may have terrain adjustments. You may go from sea level up to 8,000 feet and then back down on the same trip multiple times. So you got to watch all of that. All right. So checking from here, 4,411 miles there and back. But last time I had to go through Albuquerque, and that was because of so much smoke on the route because of so many fires. And that really changed the length of time. So That was 5,466 miles each way. So definitely the longest one I've done. And for 12, what's one thing you wish people understood about traveling with a service dog or an assistance animal? I wish that they would understand that, and it's kind of the same thing as we've talked about. I wish they could understand that my service animal is medical equipment, so that, like, when we both go into a rest area, for example, and we go into a restroom, I don't always take the time to put them in full gear. If it's hot or if I'm walking okay, then I want to give them a break from that, from the full gear. So I will not always use it, and people will say something or they'll just give me weird looks, even though his leash has the service dog wrap on it, the other one that actually fits his leash. They will still say stuff. And I really wish that people could be a little more understanding. Sometimes they have done things like walk in front of us at a rest area or when we were on a trip, or cut us off, or their kids will be playing and they'll come rushing up to Pipsie and they're like, "Can I pet your service dog?" And it's like, service dogs can't really be petted even when they're on a trip, because of the focus, and you know, do you really want your kid petting dogs that they don't know? Never a good idea. So I really wish that they understood that. And again, that's where the cards help. And I don't put the cards in his bag. I keep those cards on me. Okay, let's see. And I'm going to skip just a little bit, because I really want to answer this question, and this may roll over and I may answer it next week. And that is a college student, and he writes directly, I want to go to the mountains with my friends this summer. 22 male. My girlfriend is 21, obviously female, and her brother is 24. They all want to go to the Rocky Mountains and go hiking. But he says his parents think it's unfair for him to take his service dog along because it's a long trip and because they're going to be hiking. And he asks, how do I show them that I really can do this? So I'm glad you asked. That is a good question. First and foremost, since you are going to the mountains, if you are going to a national park, pick up the phone and call that national park before you leave home. I think it's perfectly fair to take your service dog with you. I just talked about, where I went with mine. I've done that more than once with going to Alaska because it's church mission trips. But call the national park if that's where you're going and ask them what their policy is. Specifically, they may not want you on the trail because of bears or snakes. So make sure that your dog is going to be safe on the trail before you take him there. And you may have to adjust your trip. If you get up there and they say, "Oh, we've got a problem bear going on," obviously you're not going to want to take your dog on that trail, because bears and dogs, they're known antagonists. Bears don't know dogs. They know coyotes. They know wolves. So when they see your dog, they may react. Also, dogs are notorious for putting their nose in where the nose doesn't belong. And if you're in an area that has a lot of, ground cover, or there may be stones and your dog puts his little nose in there, then you need to make sure, like, what are the snakes? Are they venomous? And have those details before you take your dog on the trip. So always, 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 if you're going to a national park or a state park and you're not familiar with it, pick up the phone, go through all the prompts on the phone, and actually talk to a park ranger at that park. It's much safer for your dog. As far as it being unfair to your dog, if you can take him safely, it's not unfair. He's your service dog. You need him or her, and he needs you. So I think it's more unfair to leave your service dog at home or board your service dog because the routine is going to change. The atmosphere is going to change. And you don't want somebody that's not familiar with your dog taking care of your dog. Other thing is, because our bond is so tight with our service dogs, if you leave him at home and your assistance animal doesn't go with you, he's going to miss you. And there's going to be this really big adjustment, and your dog's going to worry. My dogs, all of the service dogs, they've worried when I wasn't with them. So as far as talking to your parents and telling them that you're going to go with your girlfriend and her brother and you're going to go to the mountains, make sure you've done your research. Talk to your parents and say, look, I've called the park. I've talked to the vet. I've got all of his stuff, all of his towels, everything I need. Talk to your service dog trainer. If you need to get him or her on board to help you talk with your parents, then do that. The other thing I want to point out is you're a legal adult and you need to make some adult decisions for you and your service dog. And so going in with that kind of, I don't want to say attitude, but mindset when you talk to your parents may make a big difference. I think you can go. I think you can have a great time. I think it would be unfair to leave your dog at home. So, yeah, let me know how that goes, okay? I would love, love, love to know. Okay. Next one. How does your service dog handle different climates on the road? Okay, I'm going to go back and revisit this. I kind of touched on it a few minutes ago. I just told you I went to Alaska from Southwest Virginia. Obviously, that's a long drive. So he had to get used to a cooler climate at home, 2,500 feet, going down in the valley to a little above sea level, going back up to around 8,000 feet, back down in the valleys, then back up. And throughout this whole thing, we're going from an area at home that's cooler than the rest of the country. We're going to the desert Southwest on this last trip. Huge temperature difference, okay? We left 75 degrees at home, and we wound up in triple digits in the desert Southwest because we were trying to miss the smoke. So the way that we compensated is to drive, stop frequently. I monitored him the whole time. I was paying attention to his behavior. How was he? Hold on. The not so joys of asthma. But monitoring the whole time to make sure that his behavior wasn't changing, that he looked okay. I made sure to keep him on the same water from home or the bottled water. When I felt like he just needed a break, we took a break, whether I wanted to or not. Take it slow. Don't push the dog if he's not accustomed to 113 degrees outside and that's what it is, then you want to make sure he has time to acclimate. So really take your time on that. Sorry, I'm getting a little choked up here, asthma. But really take your time and pay attention. Take extra water, take extra food. Make sure, one of the things about taking extra food is that you make sure you have his food and you're not switching them. You're not running out on the trip and you're not having to use something else because that can lead to problems. And the last thing you want is a sick dog on the trip. So yeah, keep watching them, but allow for the extra climates. When we went to Alaska, I made sure I had his sweater. Did I need it? No, but it was Alaska in the summertime, so you don't know for sure what you're running into. So plan for that. Also plan for rain or a little bit of snow, depending on where you're going. So those are my suggestions on how to travel with your service dog. If you're taking a road trip, you just want to go driving, whether it's across the state or across the country, let me know how you handle that and some of the things that you do. Just drop it over in the comments, okay? Thank you all so much for hanging out, for watching. Have a great week. Have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye, you all.